Welcome back to another episode of 22 at the Lips. I am your host, Alexis Stout. If you are new to this podcast, welcome. Thank you for being here. If you've been along for the journey for a minute, buckle up. It's the same spiel we do every single time. But this is the podcast from EMS providers such as myself to fellow EMS providers, healthcare workers, and anybody and everybody in between. Whether you work in this crazy field called EMS, whether you are a nurse or if you are a doctor, thank you especially for being here. Whatever level you are, or if you just so happen to stumble upon this journey, thank you. Glad you're here. We talk about a lot of topics on this podcast, such as medicine topics in EMS, anything and everything you can think of. And today is one of the most, I feel like, the most important topic: bleeding. Why it's bad. When is it good? What does it mean? Here today, we're going to talk about that. But I have two very special guests today. Normally, I just have one. I have two. I've really doubled up on this one. Old Frank and Joe, and I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. But Frank and Joe, if you want to tell the people who you are, what you stand for, what you got, what are we doing today? The floor is yours.
Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, of course. And thanks, Alexis, for having me on, and thanks, Frank, for sharing the stage with me. My name is Joe Landolina. I'm the CEO of Cresilon, which is a biotech company based in New York. And we commercialize hemostatic devices. And so we have this product called TraumaGel, which is a plant-based gel that is indicated for the temporary control of external moderate to severe bleeding. And so this is a product that was cleared by the FDA last year, and it's now in deployment across EMS and hospitals across the US.
Well, Joe, it's always nice to be sharing the stage with the CEO. I don't get this very often, but my name is Frank Tranfaglia. I'm originally from Boston. I've worked in law enforcement. I've worked as a BLS and ALS EMS for years. Tons of training. I'm an advanced trauma life support instructor, all the AHA classes, and I'm currently a trauma program manager at a large level one trauma center in Denver. And thank you for having us. I always love going back to my roots in EMS. It's the best job I ever had. You can eat wherever you want, maybe get a nap in. Always an interesting partner.
Eat wherever you want that's open at 1 a.m. No,
Yep.
so you guys have done a lot of big things. I don't want to, I don't know what the word is for this, not included, but whatever. You guys have also been on the news. So this isn't just like saw this in the back compartment of Walmart and this is a cool product, but like this is something that's actually revolutionary. But we're going to talk about that. As a segue, blood is not good. If it's in the body, if it's circulating where it's supposed to be, it's good. We need that. Hemoglobin's got to hemoglobe somehow. But when it is out of the body, that is not good. There are two different types of bleeding that we really focus on in EMS. The one which kind of can wait. If it's too much, it's a bad thing. Venous bleeding. You can have venous bleeding and be A-okay, but if it's for too long, too bad. You have your arterial bleeding. We know about that one. That one's really bad. If it is spurting and gushing, it is not good. Two different types of bleeding. Frank, if you have any words of wisdom about bleeding, my biggest thing, it's not good and needs to be stopped. And there are different agents and devices to do that. But Frank, if you want to give any wisdom from your advice of EMS about bleeding.
I always say the red stuff has to stay in the body. When I look at some of these programs that we're teaching now, like Stop the Bleed and other programs, it's essentially the CPR bleeding control. For years, we talked about, bystander CPR. If someone goes down, for every 1 minute you're down, you lose 10% loss of life. Well, with a high pressure injury like a arterial bleed, you can bleed out in 3 to 5 minutes. So, I would argue for every 1 minute you go without stopping the bleed, you lose 20% loss of life. And that's why it's so important. And it's so important to really get a good picture of what is life-threatening bleeding and what's not. It's funny, years ago, someone told me, hey, man, do this for a couple of years. You'll be able to walk in the room and say sick versus not sick. And with bleeding, sometimes it could be a little harder. I always worked in like Northeast environments and I'm in Colorado, and people wear big puffy clothes. Some of those high pressure bleeds can pull into the clothes. So I think the best thing I tell my EMS colleagues out there is get them trauma naked. It's the way we're going to find them. Cut it all off. Do not cut off the down coat in the back of the ambulance. No one's going to be happy with you that night. It goes everywhere. I promise. I promise. Learn from my mistakes here. But especially the general public, it's great. As EMS providers, I used to, when I first started, I would get a little annoyed, like, oh, the whole world's here watching them. They didn't really videotape back then, but now they do. But now, really, the general public is their own first responder, and it's so important for them to learn really what life-threatening bleeding is and what non-life-threatening bleeding is, what pressure in a Band-Aid can do versus what a tourniquet can do. So, very excited to talk about that through the day.
Very good. Yeah, and there are different ways that people bleed, such as a little cut on the finger. People will call 911 for that. If somebody is trying to chop up a tree or something like that, I've had that call. Nasty, nasty times. Also, watch out for your dialysis shunt bleeds. Those bleed very bad and they are very hard to control. Very hard to control. You will end up changing your uniform. Um, Speaking of stop the bleed, you guys tell me about that. I think it's a very crucial anything that we can teach our fellow civilians, whatever you want to call them, even if you're off duty and you just so happen to stumble upon an emergency and you don't have your 5,000 kits and 4x4s coming out the blue bag in random places. But anything that we can teach our civilians who are there, like you said, exactly like you said, they're there first. They are there before we get there. What can they do that we are not able to do at the exact moment that needs to be done in that exact moment? As simple as even like with our ABCs, airway, breathing, circulation. That's why C is circulation because bleeding. Um, Anything that we can teach anybody and everybody on the streets, what they can look out for and what they can do. But stop the bleed. What is that? Why does it matter?
Stop the Bleed's a large national organization. It was founded in conjunction with the American College of Surgeons and the Department of Defense. What it really is, like I said, it's the CPR for civilians. It's teaching the general public how to recognize life-threatening bleeding, how to stay safe themselves so they don't become the second victim, and really how to stop and address those life-threatening events right here, right now. There are three basic principles are you really break the body down into three pieces. You have your extremities, you have your axillary, and you have your neck, groin, underneath the armpits, and then you have your arms and trunk area. So we're going to treat, all bleeding eventually will stop. And so we want to keep all the blood in the body. So what Stop the Bleed teaches is, hey, if it's in the trunk area, we're going to put pressure on it. If it's in the axillary areas, underneath your armpit, your groin, those are very hard areas to stop bleeding and pack. It's very, very difficult to get in there. But they teach them basic packing skills, how to actually pack the wound, and then they teach everyone how to use a tourniquet for all those extremities. It's a quick class. It takes about an hour. I probably do about 200 of them a year. I'm on one of their committees as well. I think it's such an important class, especially with all the modern day events with active shooters and all these crazy events happening. When I first started teaching the Stop the Bleed class, that's what I would talk about. And then when I started working at a level one trauma center, I said, whoa, way more people are cutting their arms off with chainsaws from Wyoming than anything right now. Or, punching a glass window drunk. So I tell everyone it can be used in everyday life. I was in a restaurant one time and someone got a really, really nasty cut a couple of their fingers off. And then I don't know what they did. They went around to something and they had a huge gash in their arm. And I put a tourniquet on them there. So you never know when it's going to happen. I was with my mom. I got tons of kudos for that. I was like, oh, great. But it's something you can use in everyday life, just like we teach people CPR in case someone goes into cardiac arrest. We should teach them bleeding control. And what it really does is it enables the general public to go from being helpless to helpful. It gives the EMS providers that are showing up on scene a patient to work with. If everyone stays back and does nothing, the average EMS response time is about 7 to 9 minutes on a beautiful day and fully staffed. I'm not sure anywhere in America is having that right now. So, EMS could be quite some time to get there. And, if we show up 7 or 10 minutes later, that person might not have any blood left in their body. And now we're really not working with anything. So the general public can make all the difference in someone walking out of the hospital or not. And that's why I love the Stop the Bleed program. It's very simple. I started working with a woman who actually provided and went through the whole process of getting a pediatric Stop the Bleed program. That's a little different for me. I have no children. I have two golden retrievers. So going to teach 7 to 9 year old Girl Scouts has been something else, but it's actually so enjoyable. You're like, these little kids are so smart. Wow, they know what a laceration is. They know what this is. I had to go to school and pay all this money for that. I was so impressed. So it's pretty fun. And, I've always noticed those younger kids, they're the ones willing to jump in and do something. Like they're not adults. They're not afraid. They're like, I watch them skiing and I'm like, these kids are reckless. I'd be like in a trauma center for weeks if I did that. I'd probably never walk again. So they're the ones who are going to do something. They kind of don't have that fright factor. They don't know as much as we know yet. So it's been very gratifying. And I'm actually working on a canine Stop the Bleed program with one of the vets out here in Denver. There really is no program for that now. And like I said, I have two dogs. I love them. I thought I knew how to treat my own dog. I would have did everything wrong. So once I learned that, I was like, we have to teach everyone this. We have to teach every working dog this, every canine that's in the police department or in the military, how to stop the bleeding on their dogs so they can get them to the vet. And good thing animals don't bleed just like people. Seldomly are they drunk using a chainsaw at 2 in the morning or driving recklessly, but they can. And we want to know how to treat our four-legged friends. So it's such an important topic. And anyone in the general public watching this can go to stopthebleed.org and find a class. And the classes are really user-friendly and easy.
Very good. When y'all start the Canine Stop the Bleed, I'll jump in on that because I have 2 dogs as well. No children, 2 dogs, one of which is about the same size as me. And if she starts bleeding, it's all over. So,
Yep. Joe has a dog as well, so I know he wants to know.
Yeah, I've got an 80-pound German Shepherd at home, and she was the impetus for us to go into KFAC use with our animal health product.
Very good. Speaking of products, tell me about TraumaGel. How is it different? Because there are so many sources and so many products out there. What is TraumaGel and why is it different? I know we have the hemoclot, whatever you want to call it, hemostatic. We have the tourniquets, we have the 4x4s, abdominal pads. There are so many things out there. What is TraumaGel and why is it different?
Yeah, of course. So TraumaGel is the first flowable hemostatic that is indicated for traumatic bleeding. And so let's talk about why that's important. Uh, Today, if you have a major life-threatening bleed or a severe bleed, you have to pack that wound with gauze, and that takes a very long time. A lot of times, it's very difficult to get the product in contact with the source of bleeding. And I'm sure those of us that have treated bleeds have seen this, where it's very difficult to get a truly life-threatening or a truly severe hemorrhage under control with wound packing, even with some of the products that exist in the market today. And so where TraumaGel changes the paradigm is that we are a gel. It's basically the consistency of hummus. It's preloaded into a syringe. And all you have to do is uncap the syringe, inject TraumaGel into the source of bleeding. And one caveat there is, just like you would with any other topical hemostatic, you have to make sure that you're not blindly applying the gel. So you have to identify the source of bleeding and make sure that you can get the gel in contact with the source of bleeding, and that you're not putting it into the chest or putting it into the abdomen where it can create an issue. But let's say we have a gunshot wound or a deep laceration to the leg. You identify the source of bleed, you inject TraumaGel into the wound, you then overwrap with gauze, and on contact, the gel will nearly immediately create a mechanical barrier against bleeding. And so that reduces almost the entirety of the time that it would have taken to wound pack. It ensures that you get the hemostatic directly in contact with the blood vessel. And then the best part is that, I mean, most EMTs aren't going to remove the product, but when the patient gets to the next level of care, to a hospital, you can remove the product without having it become incorporated within the clot. Because when TraumaGel works, it allows the patient to produce their own fibrin. And if you wash the gel away, that fibrin stays behind. And the beauty of this, too, is that it's still effective even if the patient is on blood thinners. I mean, in fact, we've had a number of cases where a bleed as simple as a scalp lac or a scalp laceration with an elderly patient on blood thinners, and they've bled through multiple pads of gauze. All it takes is one application of TraumaGel, and that patient is stable, no longer bleeding. And when you wash the TraumaGel away, you have a blood clot underneath that's been formed there. And so it just drastically simplifies hemorrhage control across external moderate to severe bleeds.
No, that's incredible because normally you have like your packet of whatever clotting agent that your agency supplies for you, but it's always like a powdery substance. So it's the matter of like trying to get it actually onto the bleeding, and you end up literally after the call, you're looking down, you're like, why am I covered in all of this stuff? And it's on the railings of the stretcher, it's on the cabinets of the sidewall, it's everywhere. And especially if it's something that the patient, it literally not inhibits, whatever the word is. It helps the patient create their own clotting factor instead of introducing, as much as I love TXA, introducing like TXA where it's all chemically compounded But if your patient is able to produce it for themselves, it only helps with hemodynamically stable patients that really just need a little bit of help.
Mhm.
I also I like that it just, like you said, it's just washing away, because some agents you have to go and surgically remove. So I think that's also super cool. How long has TraumaGel been out for?
So TraumaGel was only approved last August, and so this is a relatively new product on market, but the technology isn't new. So we started actually in the animal health market for canine use, and that product is available in 34 countries. It's saved over 65,000 lives of dogs in the 34 countries that the product has been used in, and that's everything ranging. So that product has a much wider indication, and so that's been used in everything from trauma, like gunshot wounds, into neuro and spine surgery, orthopedic medicine, soft tissue, and things as simple as dental procedures.
Very good. How can I get this at my agency?
So anyone that's interested can reach out to Cresilon, and so you can send an email either to info@cresilon or info@traumagel.com. And we'd be more than happy to put one of our team in contact with any agency. And so it's available nationwide to EMS agencies and trauma centers.
Very good. Good to
A really
know.
cool product. I mean, what a cool product, especially for EMS. When we think about those hard to pack places, and someone said to me one time, they said packing really comes down to two things: finger length and dexterity. And wound tracks are very different. If you ever looked at a ballistic block and shot it, the wound track's very long and jagged. Where like trauma gel for me, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, really molds to the wound instead of us having to try to pack it manually. Where we all
Mhm.
know very uncomfortable for the patient. It's hard to do, and that's why I was so attracted to TraumaGel. When I looked at it, I said, this is easy to use. We're going to be able to save lives quicker. And if you think about the patient that's like the multi-trauma, two GSWs, the lower extremities, one in the leg, one here, it's going to free up hands. And we're always looking to free up hands at EMS. So I can kind of plug and play while my partner's maybe working on an airway or getting access or doing something else. And that's why I like it. And it doesn't spray all over your stretcher. You're not going to have white powder everywhere, which is awesome.
Exactly.
No, we love that because the less cleanup, the better. Um, how many times has it been used in the field? I know you said you just got approved last August. How many times has it been used in the field?
So we're still collecting case studies, and so we have several dozen case studies now that are being written up. But we know of at least a few hundred cases throughout the U.S.
Very good. And hopefully it grows, because if this is something that's revolutionary, everybody's going to want a piece of the action.
Exactly. We're very early stage.
But there's always a beginning and always a process. Um, well, cool, cool. I highly recommend, if you're into the new things that are out there, the new things that are going to progress in the field, go ahead. Joe already gave all the info for it, but I think if it's something that can help, it's worth at least looking into. Whether, you know, there's a lot that goes into decision factors that are above my pay grade, and I don't know budgets, but I also know that there should be a price on something that can save lives, but that's just me. Um, yeah, if you want to get in on that, highly recommend. That's all I had, guys. If y'all have any parting wisdom, pieces of experience or wisdom to pass on to the people.
One thing I want to jump in and say before we transition to that was for the in-hospital providers, the physicians that are watching or the nurses, TraumaGel is your best friend when it comes to tourniquet conversion. Over the past 20 years, we've pushed heavily. Everyone put a tourniquet on everything, tourniquet it, and it's working. And we don't want to take back from that. But what I've seen from my trauma center, and we see about 3,900 trauma patients per year, is already this year we've had 6 or 7 patients that came in that had a tourniquet applied at a rural hospital for a long transport time, either from weather or there was no transport available. And you have young folks less than 47 years old losing extremities. And oftentimes when they come to us, the trauma surgeon will take the tourniquet down and they'll say, wait, there's really not much bleeding. So I love trauma gel for the idea for our rural folks and our providers who can't transport that patient to definitive care. What they can do is they can use trauma gel, stop the bleeding, take the tourniquet down, so they're preventing that ischemic injury downflow. of the injury. So that way the person can hopefully keep their arm or leg. When the trauma surgeon gets in there and washes TraumaGel out, it's going to be a beautiful pink vessel. They're going to be like, this is great. And it's kind of a win-win. So for all those folks out there, just think about that and think about that the patient in their long-term plan. Think about, we want them to be able to walk out of the hospital or reach for their own cup of coffee. And I know TraumaGel is a great tool for that.
Very good. Very, very good. That's one thing I forgot to ask about the conjunction with tourniquets and how that works. That's my bad.
Oh, I'm on it. Don't worry.
I am not. But well, very good. Anything for use of tourniquets, hemorrhagic bleeds, Joe and Frank are the people to ask. But that's really all I had, guys. If y'all have any parting words of wisdom or anything else that you want to leave the people with that I might have missed, I probably did.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, of course. So, when implementing new technology, right? There are a lot. TraumaGel is just one example of new technology, and so my recommendation is, new tech is awesome, but make sure that you do your research. Make sure that you do training. I mean, it's one thing that we do at Cresilon is we make sure that any time that we launch with a new account, we go in and we do in-house training to make sure that every single member of the team understands how to implement that new technology and how to use it properly so that it can impact your patients as best as possible. And so as you're looking at new tech, just make sure that you're taking the training, taking advantage of your training, and doing your own research before deploying the device.
Very good.
It's so easy. A trauma surgeon can do it. That's the great thing with it. I guess my parting advice would be some words of wisdom I got from a preceptor. Number one, thank you for having us. And number two, thanks for all the EMS guys out there, guys and girls out there, working their butts off every day to save someone else's life. Really, the biggest thing is make sure you take care of yourself. You're going to go through a lot. Most everyone has families at home. Really, make sure you take some time to decompress for yourself. And stay humble, stay hungry. Every single call is a new opportunity to learn. But just because you learn something, don't ever become arrogant. We can always learn every single day something new. Celebrate the wins, no matter how small. Like I said, even if, hey, that patient didn't have a code brown and we had to bet they would, that's a win. The other extreme to that is we just got Rossed on a 37-year-old man down in a game. That's a huge win. So celebrate those wins no matter what, and never forget why you started. There's going to be hard moments. There will be many of them, but remembering why you started will keep your passion alive.
Took the words right out of my mouth from every single episode. Very good. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate y'all. I'm really excited about TraumaGel. I really hope it takes off the way it needs to. And there's not enough in this field. We are still a new field in the healthcare industry. There's not enough out there that really, I mean, I don't want to sound negative. There's not enough out there that supports what we do, such as like the equipment that we need and the resources that we need, the data that we need. And if TraumaGel can help with that, I fully stand on board for it. But appreciate you, gentlemen. That's all I have. And as we send, also everything's going to be in the show notes. If you need info, if you need to figure out how to get to TraumaGel, that's going to be in the show notes. So hit that up. But as we end every single episode, so with that.
The 22 at the Lips podcast is designed to support, not replace, the relationship that exists between a practitioner and his or her medical director. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host, guest, and not necessarily of Master Medics. The information provided during this podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for your approved protocols.